should be reviewed. We've reviewed what's been brought in and given feedback on it. So this is not an issue that's not been addressed. The bottom line is what we've communicated, and council should know that the municipality has no jurisdiction over quarries. We've had that discussion in the past. Because it's raised, there is a provision under section Part 8, which is a planning provision of the Municipal Government Act. And there is a provision that gives the municipality authority over lands adjacent to quarries. And the Northern Construction case, which we've spoken about in other contexts previously, is a determining factor. And it's our Court of Appeal, and that's who we have to pay attention to. And the Court of Appeal put its mind to the whole issue of what does adjacency, what does that mean? Because the circumstances in that case was about a quarry development. They were getting, the province told Northern Construction they should get a development permit from the city. They objected to that. City took the permit, turned them down. Northern Construction took them to court and said, this is bogus. We shouldn't have to get a permit. And the Court of Appeal upheld their position. So they looked at what adjacent to a quarry meant. And the Court of Appeal, Chief Justice MacDonald, writing on behalf of the court, and I'm just going to read it, it's fairly clear language. At the same time, I see that the province wished to retain control over the location of quarries. This is clear and undisputed. No benevolent interpretation can suggest otherwise. In fact, the only fair inference is that by granting express authority over developments adjacent to quarries, the province excluded authority over quarries. And so the fight in Northern Construction was Halifax tried to say quarries only meant the actual extraction, and it excluded or didn't include the processing, the crushing. And the court didn't accept that argument. And they said, this is what's included in the jurisdiction. When we talk about provincial jurisdiction over proposed quarry, they accepted that the proposed quarry is an aggregate quarry, the footprint of which is located within a site of 3.9 hectares in area. The following is a brief description of how the proposed quarry would produce aggregate. Once an area is cleared, overburden removed, and working rock face established, aggregate production begins by drilling and blasting the rock face with explosives. The blasted rock will be passed through crushing and screening equipment known as a crushing spread to reduce it to usable dimensions and specifications for building foundations, road construction, and manufacture of cement and asphalt. The proposed quarry will have an access road, a scale and scale house office, quarry floor, and working faces, a staging area for equipment setup and storage, the crushing spread, crushers, conveyors, and screens, a wash station, designated stockpile areas, and a settling pond and drainage ditch. And all of that is under provincial jurisdiction, including monitoring for environmental and safety concerns that relate to those activities. So that's a very broad definition of what quarrying means. And they determined that Halifax's bylaw was an attempt to avoid what the provincial jurisdiction is. So when you look at the Municipal Government Act, it's really a bit of a false pathway because it's not a subject matter that the courts accept is under the Municipal Government Act. So looking in there for broad language around health and well-being, that doesn't ground jurisdiction here. So I think it's important, and I understand the concerns, but there's been enough communication. We just thought we wanted to make that point clear. We also note, we did look, and Halifax has got a nuisance bylaw, but they expressly exempt quarry operations, and we surmise that it's for the reason that it's an overlap of provincial jurisdiction. So because there's been a lot of communication, we wanted to be clear with council what the legal position is in case you hear anything from the floor tonight, and we're happy to address. But we've been given some unsigned summaries of legal opinions that have been presented, and we've reviewed each one of them and are satisfied that the Northern Construction case, as I've just read it to you, is still the law of Nova Scotia. And in fact, in Northern Construction, the city and the intervening citizens around the quarry all accepted it's under provincial jurisdiction. The question was, could they play around the edges? And the court said no. Anything that's central to that broad description I gave you is absolutely within provincial jurisdiction. And as you know, municipalities are creatures of the province. They don't have an independent constitutional standing. And just like we learned last week, when the wind turbine distances changed, the municipality is governed by the provincial determinations because they weighed in on it. There was some comparison to municipalities' separation distances and noise levels for wind turbine versus quarries. Up until 10 days ago, the province did not regulate in that area. They chose to regulate and negated the regulation that the municipality had in place. So I just wanted to make that clear at the beginning because you may hear it, and there's been lots of correspondence, and if there are any questions, we just thought we'd be proactive on it.
Thank you for that clarification, Dennis. Much appreciated. I would now ask our municipal staff to introduce the municipal planning strategy and the land use bylaw.
Okay, done. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and welcome everyone. This is a rather historic moment for Colchester as it's the first time ever this county will consider implementing countywide land use planning. And this hearing really marks the conclusion of a process that spanned 2.5 years that brought us to practically every corner of Colchester, speaking with residents, trying to sort of understand the issues, the opportunities, and concerns that they have about their future. And the things that really need to be protected, and sort of the ways and means of what we can do through this process to address those. The draft documents, as the Deputy Mayor has indicated, are the culmination of an intensive and extensive public engagement process. And, you know, considering the legislative parameters that we must act within, I believe they represent the best possible balance between municipal and community interests that really aim to manage future growth across Colchester. I always, and just to reemphasize what the Deputy Mayor said, these documents are not static. They'll change in time as communities grow, expand, and new issues emerge. And, you know, having said that, we can always begin processes that reevaluate policies and the regulations that accompany those. Importantly, this fulfills the Colchester's obligation to complete a countywide plan, as was required by Bill 58. And the deadline set to complete this process was March 31st of this year. And while this was a mandated exercise, it also allowed an opportunity for us to sort of have or to modernize our policies and regulations within Central Colchester and Tittamegush, where we have had planning documents for about 20 years. And while they worked well, the new issues around housing, coastal protection, flood risk, and resource protection have emerged. And you know, this allowed an opportunity for us to sort of really update those and address them with modern ways to manage those challenges. As our solicitor has indicated, we've recently needed to change some of the provisions around wind turbines that essentially reduce the setbacks and noise levels which were in our draft documents. And this was under a directive by the Minister of Municipal Affairs, which not only applied to us, but all municipalities in Nova Scotia. And in many ways, this is an unfortunate circumstance for many, given that we were heavily engaged in a process that spanned more than a year to sort of work towards a solution that set standards that were more or less represented a workable solution between residents and the energy sector. The draft documents that Council will be considering this evening have been a monumental task, and it would have been impossible to complete without the dedicated and experienced team of upland planning and design. And on that note, I'd like to welcome Ian Watson of Upland, who will now provide a bit of an overview of the document, and upon conclusion of his presentation, we'll be happy to sort of answer any questions you may have. So, Ian.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Council. Good evening, everyone. My controller. Okay. Yes, my name is Ian Watson. I'm a senior planner with Upland Planning and Design, and we've been working with the municipality, going on two years now on the Planet Colchester project. So it's exciting to be here tonight. For those of you who are, you may have been just joining the process maybe for the first time tonight. So I just wanted to give a really quick overview of what this is and what's been done so far. So fundamentally, as has been alluded to already, is Planet Colchester is a project to develop a county-wide municipal planning strategy and county-wide land use bylaw, and have that all built on a foundation of intensive background research and especially public engagement. The municipality does have planning currently in certain areas in Tadamgush, in the central plan area around the town of Truro. But much of the municipality's land area is unplanned, and that has worked fairly well. The growth has been organic, and it has been what it is. But as we've seen in recent years, population has increased. There's been a fair bit of pressure for development. So there is a need to think about that strategically through planning. And then also these planning projects are really an opportunity for residents to think about who we want to be as a community and have a say in how our community grows and develops. As Paul alluded to, this is also a requirement. Starting in 2018, the province through Bill 58 established minimum planning standards that required all municipalities in Nova Scotia and all areas of all municipalities in Nova Scotia to be planned. There's minimum requirements to that. Communities are very much able to tailor that to their needs, but there are minimum standards that we need to meet. One thing that I always like to flag to people is that in Nova Scotia, when it comes to planning, is that planning documents apply to new development going forward. There is a concept under the Municipal Government Act of non-conforming uses and non-conforming structures. That sounds like maybe a bad thing. Oh, you're non-conforming, but it's actually a protection under the Act for things that legally existed before rules changed. Some people casually refer to it as grandfathering. So existing uses that legally exist within the municipality, that doesn't change. We don't come and retroactively apply land use planning to those existing uses. And they can be sold, they can be passed down to children, all of those things. So that's quite relevant. So in the fact that this map here, the small red area is the planned Tadamgush planning area. The darker yellow is the central plan area around the town. And then the kind of cream color is the rest of the municipality that is currently unplanned, except for in regards to wind turbines. So in those colored areas where we've changed we've changed rules in some instances, and that will have an impact on non-conforming status or might make things non-conforming, but protected. And then in those cream areas, there was no planning previously, so presumably, at least from a planning perspective, everything that's there today is likely legal. So I'm not going to dwell on this for too long because both Paul and the Deputy Mayor touched on the engagement a little bit, but just to highlight that this has been a 2-year process with 2 major rounds of engagement, as well as kind of a final check-in draft engagement. And many of you were probably involved in these engagement activities one way or another, open houses or at the agricultural workshops, pop-up events, online maps. You might have done the survey. And then, so we did that initial engagement, asking the big picture questions. Who are we as a community? What's our vision for the future? Turned that into drafts, and then went through 2 rounds of checking those with you as the community. So again, another round of open houses, another more agricultural workshops, mapping, fact sheets, online feedback form, checking what we got right, and more importantly, what needed to be adjusted. And then we worked with Planning Advisory Committee and with Council to adjust those drafts in response to much of that feedback to get us to where we are today, which is the draft municipal planning strategy, draft land use bylaw that Council has given first reading to. So just to touch on the highlights of these a little bit, when it comes to housing, when we were doing engagement, we heard a lot about the rapid growth and the pressure that that's put on the housing market and the challenges that's created for availability of housing and particularly for affordability of housing. So there's a number of things that the drafts do to help hopefully tackle this. And these changes are especially affecting the areas that are already planned, because in many cases we've loosened the rules when it comes to housing a little bit, including allowing accessory dwelling units, so that's your backyard suites, your granny flats, that sort of thing, in zones that permit single unit dwellings, reducing lot size requirements so that new development can more efficiently use land and services, limiting the expansion of the R1 zone, so that's a very low density zone. Those neighborhoods exist. That's not going to change, but it's not something we necessarily want to force on new communities in the future. Treating supportive housing the same as dwellings of a similar size. Streamlining the approvals process for small multi-unit buildings in the R3 zone. And then treating land lease communities, new land lease communities, the same as other developments of a similar density. Existing ones would still be subject to the existing land lease development bylaw. Also, through our engagement, we heard a lot about agriculture. I don't think that's a surprise. Colchester is a farming county. And as a result, we actually had a lot of agriculture-specific engagements, a couple of workshops with the agricultural community. We heard a lot of concern about the potential to limit the flexibility that farmers have with what they do with your land. It's your biggest asset, and it's important to be able to work with it. But also, concerns about how development around agriculture activities can impact those lands and your ability to farm. So one thing to note is when it comes to planning documents is that we don't regulate the direct agricultural activities. So we don't regulate cropping, we don't regulate pasturing. It's the things to do with, the related activities around that, things like feed mills or barns or processing, all of those things, but not the actual crops or animals. So these drafts, a really big move here is that they create a new agricultural potential zone. That zone applies to good agricultural soils as defined in the Municipal Government Act. There's a statement of provincial interest that says we need to identify those soils and prioritize agricultural development on them. So that's what the agricultural potential zone takes in, those soils as defined by the province. There are exceptions, and we've made exceptions in areas where it's known to be inaccurate or where there's existing development that takes priority over agriculture. The agricultural potential zone also covers provincially designated marshlands, and it allows, again, to that idea that we want to allow farmers to continue to use their land. It allows a fairly wide range of uses, similar to the rural general zone, minus some of those intensive uses like maybe gas stations or industry or that kind of thing that could permanently impact agricultural land. And then one of the key controls on how much development happens in these areas is limiting private road subdivision to small subdivisions. There's a recognition of and clear permission for agritourism uses and agriculture-related industry widely permitted in the rural areas. Farmers markets are recognized and widely permitted. Those agricultural soils are something that council has to think about in planning applications. And then in the existing plan areas, in the urban areas, there's a rules about there's a rule that small like backyard chickens, you can have them, they don't need to be permitted. So that rule has been kept forward for those areas and expanded in the rural areas. But then you can also do, again, agriculture through the moderate livestock category, through the livestock operation category. There's just different scales. So it's widely permitted to do. The structures, the buildings, again, we don't regulate the animals themselves, but the buildings related to animals in the rural areas. Environment, we heard how much people value the environment, but also concerns about climate change and the effects on things like flooding and erosion. So the documents clearly recognize solar panels and EV chargers. The wind turbine provisions, as Paul alluded to, that the municipality has existing ones. They were developed through a long public process. So we've just rolled those forward, except for, as Paul mentioned, the province has recently issued a directive on separation distances between turbines and dwellings that we can only be so strict as to require the greater of 4 times the turbine height or the distance that creates no more than 40 decibels of noise. So those changes are included. The flood zones that apply and overlays that apply through the municipality have been updated to take advantage of the most recent mapping available. There's also maps, many of the public water supplies in the county, both for the municipality itself, Tatamagouche, Debert, but also for the town of Truro and Stewiacke, have areas of their water supplies that extend into Colchester municipality. So those areas are identified and high-risk uses are prohibited in those areas. There's a requirement for stormwater management plans on large developments. There's an implementation of a buffer for development between the development and water courses, as well as the coast to deal with erosion. There's a minimum coastal elevation to deal with sea level rise, and then a new shoreline zone that applies for now primarily around lakes. It keeps development density lower, reduce impacts on the water, but that could also be used in coastal areas or along rivers as well. And then finally, recreation and tourism. We heard how much people value the trails and parks in Colchester and wanting to see more of that, and as well as more support for tourism and that kind of thing. So accommodations are widely permitted in rural and commercial zones. So whether that's a hotel on Roby Street or a glamping bunkie in Great Village, that's widely permitted to do accommodations. There's the Parks and Open Space Zone to recognize public parks, a new commercial recreation zone for things like golf courses. Campgrounds are permitted, but in certain zones, but there's a tool site plan approval just to make sure that the impacts on the surrounding areas are managed. Same with shooting ranges and racetracks. They're important parts of the communities, but they can be louder, have impacts. So there's tools to deal with that in the documents. Trails, parks, and open spaces are widely permitted, and there's policy support for active transportation infrastructure like multi-use trails and bike lanes and sidewalks. And then lastly, there's a couple new zones, a new airport zone for the airport in Debert, new Mi'kmaq land zone for the Mi'kmaq lands in Debert and elsewhere, a newish Main Street zone. So in Tatamagouche, there was a Main Street zone, and we've actually expanded that to be able to use everywhere in other communities. So it's, your traditional Main Street, buildings close to the street, maybe residential above commercial, that zone's available. There's specific provisions recognizing the unique circumstances of the Debert Business Park, things like signage and stuff like that. There's rules specific to Debert. Tatamagouche in the existing planning documents has a village heritage area, which controls some of the architecture and design to preserve, kind of that special atmosphere of Tatamagouche. So that's continued. And then most fundamentally, the big piece in all of this is bringing it together in a cohesive approach across the whole municipality, having new documents that are easy to read, easy to understand, as much as planning documents can be. They're big and there's a lot to go into them, and they're a couple hundred pages long. But as much as they can be, we've tried to have them be user friendly. So with that, I just want to touch one more thing on next steps, which is, so council has given these documents first reading. We're here tonight at the public hearing. After this public hearing closes, what council does, and this may be the first time that many of you have ever participated in a public hearing, so I want to just explain a little bit. Council will listen to all your feedback, and then council goes into the council meeting and debates or talks about what they heard from you, and debates and considers whether to give the document second reading or not. They can ask us questions for clarification to help their discussions. And then if council feels that there's major changes that need to be made, they can direct us to do that. And then if those changes are substantive, the documents would actually go back to first reading, and there would have to be another public hearing and a discussion all over. So there's a process there to make changes and consider them again in the public. If council feels that they're content, as much as can be with these documents, they can adopt them, give them second reading. They get sent off to municipal affairs to be reviewed, make sure we're complying with legislation, with the Municipal Government Act and other regulations. Municipal affairs, if they are concerned that we might not be, they bump them up to the minister for review. Or if they think we're on side with legislation, then they approve them, or the minister approves them, and the documents go into effect once there's an ad in place that says they're in effect. The one other thing I know, I do these a lot all around Atlantic Canada, and one thing that often comes up is, most councils do their consideration of second reading right after the public hearing, and there's a reason for that. In that, sometimes people are worried that it's rushing into it, but there's two reasons for that actually. One is it means that all the feedback that they've heard from you is fresh in their mind. They just heard it. It's there. They can talk about it. And the other thing is that councils, after the public hearing, are not supposed to hear new information before they make their decision. The idea there being that we want all the councillors to hear the same information, and we want all of you to hear the same information. So if you delay the discussion for second reading to a week later or 2 weeks later, there's a risk in all of that you're at the grocery store and someone comes up and talks to you, hey, about that thing. And now you've heard new information, and that can cause a problem. So councils like to have their discussion, their debate immediately following the public hearing, which I think is generally a good practice. So with that, thank you very much. And this is to hear from you, so I'm going to stop talking.
Thank you, Ian. Much appreciated. A lot of hard work has gone into this document. Will the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee please present the report from the February 18th, 2025 meeting? Please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So Colchester Planning Advisory Committee held a meeting on February the 18th, 2025. The Colchester Planning Advisory Committee of the Municipality of Colchester discussed the following. Committee reviewed the updated countywide municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw. It's required to fulfill the municipality's minimum planning obligations as mandated by the province. A few minor amendments were made to the draft document as part of this review that include: 1, substitute the 2016 CBCL flood mapping with the 2024 provincial flood mapping prepared by Dillon Consulting for the province. 2, provisions for cluster developments which were intended to replace land lease communities. 4 to 8 structures up to 16 units by site plan approval, and 8 or more structures up to 16 units by development agreement. 3, various mapping and text corrections. Correspondence received from the public which focused on wind turbines was circulated, read in the minutes, and discussed also. There were questions from PAC members, and answers were provided by staff and the consultants of satisfaction of the committee. The committee recommends that council give first reading to the draft planning documents and authorize second reading and a public hearing. Respectfully submitted, Tim Johnson, Chair of the PAC.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Just a reminder, when you're speaking, I was told to bring the mic as close as you can to your mouth, just for those on joining us virtually. Mr. Clerk, have any written submissions been received?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, I have 3 submissions. And if I could, I'll do a brief summary of those submissions that have been received. The first is from Shervin Hana, which has concerns with regards to the C1 zoning, specifically the elimination of a sole residential opportunity, which was previously allowed. There's also a request allowing for medium and high density uses for residential in C1 zones without commercial components in the building. The second is from Margaretta Sander, who has concerns over the provincial mandate with regards to changing the setback laws for industrial wind turbines. Also has concerns around the natural resource position of the province. Believes there's a duty to inform residents and ask the county to put the plan on hold to create a strategy to deal with these significant provincial changes. And then lastly, Heather Zwicker, who is a concerned resident of Glenholm and has concerns around industrial expansion within the protection of the shoreline zone and concerns around process, and was asking that second reading be deferred. Those are the 3 written submissions that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you. All right, are there any members of the public present who wish to address council concerning these proposed planning documents? When you come to the microphone, I'd ask you to come to one of the mics set up in the room. Please identify yourself for the record and then proceed. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak with reminder when your time is almost up and when your time is up. So 3 minutes. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to, okay, Nancy?
Thank you. It has been a long road. We've talked about bylaws with respect to wind turbines. Well, we've talked about 2.5 years, but I think we've been over 3 years with wind turbines. It's been a long and extensive process. There's been a great deal of passion, resources, energy committed by community members, Colchester staff, mayor, council, and uplands to establish regulations that would appropriately protect our communities from the risk of industrial wind turbines. These consultations and discussions were always conscious of what regulations, including setbacks, that they would protect communities and our environment while maintaining the economic viability of these projects. Some of us in the community that have made presentations would not feel that everything we asked for, everything we wanted were in the bylaws, that they're not perfect. But we do appreciate and acknowledge they are a result of a transparent and structured process where all stakeholders were provided an opportunity for input and discussion. We do appreciate the safeguards and protection the final draft bylaws include. I just changed, I would change that hearing what you, Ian, said a few moments ago. And we appreciated the democratic process. I'm shocked and dismayed that the province's amendments to the Municipal Governments Act would override council and the community's work in favor of setback requirements that are less than half of what has been committed to, especially concerning the minister's direction to council that prohibits visual impact as a consideration for the approval of industrial wind turbines. We live in Canada's ocean playground where visual impact is pretty important. I'm not sure who asked for these changes that the province has overridden. It was definitely not requested at any of the community member meetings. The province has not had any input and involvement in the drafting of these bylaws. Whose special interest are they supporting when they would request the democratic process and proclaim safeguards that reduce protection to Nova Scotia? We need to understand the province's action. It is not the communities who are most impacted by these industrial turbines that are being protected. They might respond that this reduction as protection is required to make the projects economically viable, but understand that there are projects happening and they're abiding by these setbacks, and they have determined that they're still economically viable. So I guess, and I know my time's getting getting finished. I don't know, we asked for our 3 MLAs to be here. I know numerous people have asked so that they could answer these questions and respond to why the province thinks this is prohibited. I don't think any of them are here, and I guess that's, again, pretty discouraging and frustrating to a very discouraging process. My question is, if Colchester County will respond to this, to what the province is doing, if there's a plan, and if they plan on billing the province for the huge cost that has been used to come up with provisions and plans that they're going to override. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to state your name, Nancy, please. Yeah.
Nancy Frame, I'm part of Protect Wentworth Valley. I also represent Nancy and Howard Frame, and I'm also part of Green Nova Scotia First, all of which I know would have appreciated and have asked our MLAs to be here to ensure that they get some understanding and community perspective for something that they have not been very involved in, but saw fit to override.
Thank you, Nancy. Are there any other members of the public? Okay, over here, please. Remember to state your name, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Wayne Edgar, and I live in West Earltown, very near the Nutby wind development. We're actually 2.4 kilometers from that, from the nearest turbines. And I know from experience that closer than the 2 kilometers would be quite impactful on residents, depending on the topography, the wind direction, ambient noise, and all those things. And actually, to speak to Nancy's description, which I thought was very good, thank you very much for that. It's been way more than 2 years that residents in Colchester County have been bringing this before council. Like you, Nancy, I'm very disappointed that the MLAs are not here to hear these concerns, because they're deeply felt in the community by many people, and they've been expressed to council. And I know in my case, I've made presentations to council 10 years ago, I think, about this. So we're not opposed to wind development. Wind development is very important for our province, and we know that. But properly done is what is more urgent, really. So given the actions of the government, with the provincial government, which I think are heavy-handed, to say the least, I would hope that going forward with the plan, that the council would at least say to the provincial government that you, on behalf of the citizens, are very disappointed with this particular decision, and would hope that and would ask that it be reconsidered, changed, or whatever. I mean, you can have a role in stating, I think, in supporting our point of view, and I would ask you to do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Wayne? Anybody else from the general public that would like to speak? Okay, right here. Microphone behind. Yeah.
My name is Judy McKenzie from Pleasant Valley.
Can you just repeat your first name? We missed that.
Judy McKenzie.
Thank you.
And I'm here to speak to you tonight to voice my concerns about the announced closure of the Lower Truro Springs, which I think is a land issue also. I'm not sure how this closure decision was made, but it's obvious that it was made by someone who had no concern for the public's needs or wishes. Perhaps it was made by employees or elected officials who have access to clean, safe water that runs through their taps. I'm sure it was not made by anyone who uses this spring or drives by it daily and sees the public waiting to fill up their jugs. In 2025, safe drinking water should be a right, but it isn't. I'm a landowner and I pay thousands of dollars in taxes, but I can't drink the water that comes out of my tap. My family and thousands of others use and depend on this water spring each week. In these times of economic hardship, the mayor and the council need to do what they can to ease the financial burdens of families where they can, and you can make a difference here. I'm sure there are challenges, but they are not insurmountable. Isn't that why you got into public service in the first place, to help people and solve problems? It's my understanding that the lease has expired, which was a minimal expense to the county. It's also my understanding the landowner has no issue with the use of the land and where the pipe is located now, but the issue seems to be a liability insurance issue for the owner of the water runoff. The county holds liability insurance for many areas like trails and parks in the county. You should be able to solve this problem. It will be an expense, but a solution should be found. Some may say safety is an issue. I know there's a UV light there, which must disinfect. The water is tested regularly. One of the most important considerations the council needs to be aware of is the economic hardship this will be for thousands of families in Colchester County. It's a social justice issue, and it's not equitable for your citizens. This rash decision only benefits big corporations like Sobeys and Superstore, who will cash in from people who can barely afford to buy nutritious material or nutritious food now. Apparently, the council doesn't know how many people depend on this water source. I suggest using a car counter system to get some facts. We've been benefactors of this water source for years. You were elected by the citizens of Colchester County to work for us and be our spokesman. We need you to hear our voices and be the bridge with the municipality. Time's up, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you for your comments and expressing your concerns. Any other members of the public that would like to speak? Be at the back? Okay, yep. Please tell us who you are.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, councils. My name is Peter Watson. I live in Truro Heights. A librarian told me when I was a kid, a picture's worth 1,000 words. There's the filter out of my well water in Truro Heights after 5 days. That's what it looks like. Now, I have had a plumber with 40 years of experience in this county do an assessment. I've had well drillers. I've had everybody there. There is nothing I can financially do to change the water quality, to make it safe to drink. The well water is terrible. There's nothing I can do. We have drawn water from the lower Truro water system for decades. What can we do to help keep it there? That's the question. I know liability. I understand anytime you check with a lawyer, legal counsel, solicitors, they're always going to go risk averse. They always will. There's a lot of traffic there. Tells you there's a demand. There's a demand to have the water available to people. I can't understand why you close it. I can't understand. If you wonder how important water is, clean drinking potable water is, ask multiple First Nations lands across this beautiful country of Canada who don't have access to drinking water and would go miles to get it. We can go down to Lower Truro to get it. We get it on our own. I understand there's traffic. I understand you have some debates on situations down there. People just got to be respectful. We got to pay for the liability of it if that's necessity. The farmers in this area, who we all love, have been more than generous for decades to provide the water there. Free. We just need to make sure that it continues. Because there's a lot of people in Truro Heights, Pleasant Valley, as we mentioned here, the greater county, that really depend on that water to make their families drink healthy water daily. It's a basic right. Don't take it away.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. Anybody else from the public would like to address council?
My name is Elliot Hebb.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
My name is Elliot Hebb.
Okay. thank
Sorry, a
you.
little nervous. I don't really like speaking in front of people, but it's become apparent that we're going to lose our water source. It's well, from what I read online, it's that the council all voted unanimously to shut it down. I'd like to know from each and every one of you sitting up there, who of you guys rely on it? Do any of you guys use it? And I don't mean filling up a water bottle when you're out on a walk on a trail. I mean, do you rely on the water source or do you get it from your taps at home? Because there's a difference. There's a lot of people here today that I think you can tell by the reaction of the crowd here that we rely on this water, but you guys are easily voting to shut it down over liability. How about signage? Did we ever think about putting up signage and some rules? Maybe if you're worried about E. coli or something like that for liability, put up consume at your own risk. There's simple ways to deal with this, but to shut it down and to say in 2 weeks from now or 2 weeks after we tell you we're going to shut it down, we're going to remove the infrastructure from it, it's ludicrous. It's not acceptable. And I'm hoping that everybody here that's here for the water gets up and speaks, and you guys get to hear it from everybody and see our faces, because it's not acceptable. We pay taxes. I just bought a place out in Nutby where I don't have a water source out there, so I come in every couple days and fill up there. But if I had to buy that at the grocery store, it's going to be $25 every 3 days. Do you guys even realize how much water you use? I don't think you do until you're actually lugging it to your house. But to have the luxury of sitting at your house and putting it on your tap, not everybody has that. And I think you're missing the point that you got 3 things that we're supposed to speak about here. There's only been 2 people spoke about that. Everybody else here, I believe at this meeting is here for this water source. And I hope that every person gets up and talks to you about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hebb. There's another lady who wanted to speak. Is that okay?
Elaine Urquhart, and I just want to echo what you're hearing. And it's a very sad thing. And I don't know where this came from, but I got it secondhand. I don't have Facebook. I don't have Instagram. So I don't know how all this came about, but I heard it secondhand. And I echo what you have heard, and I think there's definitely something that can be done to save the water. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Anybody else like to address council? Yep. Thank you.
Oh, I just broke it.
Well, yeah.
Oh, thanks. Okay. My name is Effie Moore, and it's about the water. That setup that's there now, that's been there for X amount of years. But before that setup, you would park across on the road, on the side of the road, and you would get it out of that little hookup they had on Buddy's property. So I'm saying, if you take that away, are you capping it? Are you rerouting it? Or can we go right back to the ditch and get it where we used to?
Thank you. Any other person in the room that would like to address council?
I'm Wanda. Really, how many of you actually use that water
Wanda,
source?
can you provide your last name, please?
Tanner?
Tanner, thank you.
Yep. How many of you actually use that source? We want to know that. Not, I mean, them up there. I totally believe. I'm just curious.
This isn't a, sorry.
Want to know? Yes.
Wanda, this isn't a question answer period. We're receiving information from you, okay?
Don't we have a right to know though? right? We do have a right to know. That's right.
Anybody else like to speak? Over here, please. Please state your name as I've mentioned. Yep, up to the mic, please. Yep.
My name's John Mumford. I live in the community. I've been using the spring water for over 20 years. I believe this issue was brought up before unofficially that the county wanted to close the spring down for water testing, liability issues, etc. And it was met with some opposition. But the traffic concerns were addressed and the farmers had donated the land. I think we're all well aware that it's being used extensively. Somewhat related, I mean, I'm sure some of us have sent water over to third world country or money over to third world countries so that there's a clean water supply for a lot of these villages that have a central water supply. And I think it should be reiterated that this should be a highest priority of our council. It's the urbanization of this county. It's very different than it has been for a lot of years past. And it is a basic right. I'd like to propose possibly an engineered solution is the Fundy View area is a high, it's a low traffic zone. And we're obviously supplying water there through the washrooms, the public washrooms. I don't know if that water is tested. I don't know if it comes from the Truro water supply, but I can see there's possibility there that there could be a line of hydrants available. Just an idea. Yeah, that's about all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Yep.
My name is Sherry Light. We're new to the area. We're going to be living on Kent Road in a few months. One of the things I was happy about was that if the power goes out, because we have a well, that we'd have a source of water. And that was it. And my concern is, or question, for over 20 years, it's been safe. As far as everybody knows, it's been treated and monitored. Suddenly, there's a big concern about liability. What would be the cost of covering the liability to the council? That's my question.
So we're receiving all this information, just so you know. Anybody else like to speak? Oh, sorry.
Hi, my name's Kevin Ward. We live in Debert, and we have a high level of arsenic in our water, which a lot of people in Debert do. So we depend highly on that spring. I mean, we've been using it for over 20 years, and as far as the problems that you fellows brought up, I mean, a lot of those things can be easily resolved. We pass there when it's lined up down the road, and we just say, oh, well, we'll come in tonight for a drive, right? Like at 10 o'clock, and then there's hardly anybody there. You know what I mean? Like, the people want it so bad, they're going to make, they're going to make ideas they'll have ideas to come up with. There won't be any more allocation or altercations because that person was so, defamed on social media. I mean, people realize, you better don't say anything bad out there because we're going to lose it. That's well known now. The recent altercation they had out there, that won't happen again. That person was, disgraced over it. But I can tell you one thing, the people that's going to be watching, which one of you step up to the plate to keep our water? Now's your chance to make a difference and respect the people and their wishes, right? We're all taxpayers, pay big taxes, We want this water, so make it happen.
Thank you. Anybody else? Not seeing anybody getting up to the mic. Oh, there.
Hello, my name's Janica McKenzie. I grew up on that water. I remember when it was when it was in a pipe on the other side of the street. And it was really dangerous then, like the amount of traffic. I just want to say that we keep chickens as a way to keep our food costs down. And in keeping chickens, we have to feed them that water because our well water is not good enough to consume. Also, in keeping chickens, we contribute to the local economy to feed our chickens and feed and stuff like that. And I don't think it'd be a challenge to afford to keep our pets as well, which is money that goes into our vets, local, all kinds of local, businesses. So this is not disappointing to the people who use it. It's devastating.
You. Anybody else? Yep.
My name is Leo Duick, and I'm from about 45 minutes away out in East Knoll, and we carry all our drinking water from that fountain as well. And now if they want to clean up that whole thing there, that would cost way more than maybe making a little bit extra, the shoulder wider so that the traffic isn't affected as much.
Thank you. Seeing anybody stand up? Okay.
I'm going towards the windmills with the setbacks.
Can you state your name?
Hi, my name's Debbie Atkinson, and I'd like to speak about the windmills. Like 20 years ago, we were fighting to stop windmills from coming, and we realized that they're a necessary evil now. And at this stage in our life, it's about quality of life. And for the noise, and they say, oh, well, 40 decibels. They have no idea what it's going to be in a lot of areas. We're actually out in Wentworth, and we are going to be, even the guys that are building the windmills, and we got 3 kilometer setbacks there. And I speak to them all the time. We drive our bikes through and we see the devastation that they have done building these here, and the roads and what they have taken away to get gravel to build these roads. And they laugh and they said, you guys are going to hear noise from miles away here in the valley. And for everybody around is almost making a joke, because right now we have Donald Trump in the South trying to put all these tariffs on us, and all of a sudden our premier all of a sudden is being nicknamed Tim Trump. And I can't believe that he's just going out and making these changes without consulting the constituents in Nova Scotia. And it almost seems like he decides what he wants to do and he goes ahead and does it. And I think that different municipalities should have a say in this, and it shouldn't be basically one man that has this say.
Thank you, Debbie. I thought I saw somebody else getting up. Yep. Okay.
Hi, everybody. Dan Smith. I first started going out to the Ginsey's driveway and filling up my parents' water jugs. We had some glass carboys, and we'd make some beautiful wine there. And then I just kept on going and filling up for my own drinking water. I live in town, and I mean, I know the water's safe to drink. I mean, there is, I don't know what they added, chlorine or whatever, I know, and it's in minuscule amounts, so they say it's harmless to us. But I mean, to get water from an artesian well deep in the ground, that's a luxury. That's a win for the county, and it'd be a shame to lose it. I mean, if we ever, like during a storm or something, it's going to help that many people if they can't access their own water due to power outage in their wells. Yeah, good, clean drinking water. It's, I don't think it's to be messed with. Anyway, thanks, everybody. Hope we can save the water well.
Would anybody else like to address council? Thank you.
My name's Betty Graham, and I've sat out there waiting to get water and seen several businesses pull in there with several big jugs getting their water there as well. It's not only just individual people that are doing it. And you people on council don't mind having Christmas lights on from November until just recently shut off all that time. And things like this, thousands of dollars of money you're putting out for a field that for sports, that's nice to have, but it might be used 2 or 3 times a year. But yet everyone that needs the water has to do without because of cost.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Going once? Okay.
Just this. Alex McDonald, live in Great Village. So I just wanted to more about the rural zones and just making sure that there is accessibility for housing moving forward and looking at those zones moving forward, and that we allow for single dwellings and other opportunities, especially in mixed use areas. I'd like to see a little bit more about what these urban centers will look like and things along that lines. Also, along with the water question, I think it's on a different aspect. I'm looking at what does future development look like and making sure that there is proper testing and especially in the small zones where they're saying 8 dwellings and things along that line. So just want to put those things in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? You've already had a chance. I don't know. Are they allowed to speak twice?
A different issue, though.
Different issue? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, Wayne Edgar from Earltown. This is just really a question of clarification. Can you put up on the screen the protected agricultural areas or the priority areas for agriculture? Is that possible? Do you have a graphic for that? You know, the zones that are established for agricultural priorities. I'm just curious. It might be available online or something, but.
I'm looking at Ian with Upland, see if there's.
We do have that there, though I don't know how we get it on the screen here or whether that's appropriate within the context of your public hearing. But I can also talk to the gentleman and point him in the right direction.
Is there a specific issue, Wayne, that you'd like to ask? Okay. It was online on the county website. Any further questions? Any comments? I'll say going once, going, oh. Is this a different issue, Elaine?
No, it's just how do we find out what council has come to the conclusion of the issue that was brought up this evening about water. I don't personally use it only when there's a power outage, which may be 5 times usage in my hand. But I think it's a great thing to keep. But like I said, I heard it by hearsay. How do I find out when there is a next meeting about this?
So tonight is a public hearing about our municipal planning strategy, land use bylaw. So watch for future council meetings coming up, and we meet monthly at the end of each month. It's the last Thursday of every month.
So it's the last Thursday of every month?
Yeah,
and
they're public meetings.
Okay, so that first Monday of the month, that wouldn't involve the water. It'd be the end of the month.
Our council meetings are the last Thursday of the month.
And are they here?
No, at the courthouse.
So the next one would be in
April.
28th?
I haven't got a calendar, but it's the last Thursday of
Oh,
April.
Thursday. Okay, I was
Yeah.
thinking Monday. And it'll be at
The county office, the
Court
courthouse.
Street and Prince in April?
Will be in the courthouse at the end of April.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Up on the third floor. Yeah.
Church.
On Church Street is the name of the street. Yeah. Anything further? Yes?
Hi, my name is Barb Holland, and I too am unable to drink my water. So I've been going to the watering hole, we call it now, for about 20 plus years. It would be devastating for them to close it. I would be more than happy just to go back to the way it was, where nobody was liable, everybody just kind of came and went. And when the municipality did step in, I thought it was great. I thought, oh, well, this is even better. But now, when it becomes a problem and all this and that, we wait in line long periods of time. Last week it was 50 minutes, but you just always try to guess what the other person is going to fill and how much longer you're going to have to be, Sometimes it's one little jug and then sometimes it's like 6. It's like, oh, get a life. But, like I have gone back after I filled up my 2 big jugs and filled up 2 more. I had no problem doing that. I'm retired, so maybe that helps. But overall, it would be beyond devastating to close the watering hole. I can't even imagine not having it because our family relies on it. My daughter relies on it. And I just think it's wrong. Like, you can't do that to us. It's part of what we needed to survive. And anyway, I just hope you really rethink your decision, if that has been finalized or whatever you're doing. But we need to keep our water hole open. And that's what I want to see.
Any further questions? Yes.
Hi there. My name is Krista McNair. I'm with the Truro Housing Outreach Society. Positive things to say, like way to go, everybody that had their hands on this in terms of the land use planning. My role is executive director with supportive housing and strategic growth with our organization. After the last month of opening our first supportive housing home for folks, I'm try not to get emotional, but the fact that you folks made the specific designation to treat supportive housing the same, like if I had a hat, it would come off to you. Thank you, because community and reciprocity is happening within the last 3 to 4 weeks. We have people healing. We have people talking about plans for the future when we picked them up the day before they moved in because they were planning on ending their life. So I just have to say it's making a big difference already. We're just getting started. We're going to do it right. We're going to take everybody's thoughts and feelings and concerns. Happy to hang out if anybody happens to have any here now. I had no intentions of speaking, but I just needed to say when I saw that specifically outlined, Dan, team, everybody, thank you so much.
Any further questions or comments? Yes.
Could you go to the mic, please?
Yeah. Is it something new that you're raising? Because you've already had your time.
Well, it's just 1 second of your time. I just want to know if the councillors are going to delay the closure of the spring until they can further investigate it and come up with a decision. Because it's set to close almost in the next few days, I think. The sign said 2 weeks. Are they going to delay their decision and just take a better look at it?
My understanding, it was a 2 weeks notice before it was closed. That was my understanding.
Well, are they going to delay it is what I'd like to know before they can come up with a better answer for us, That's why we're here.
That's great. Thank you. Anything further on the municipal planning strategy land use bylaw? Okay, I don't see anybody, so we'll move along. Does staff wish to respond to any of the issues raised by the public? Oh, sorry, before that, or any members? No, yeah, that's right. Does staff wish to respond to any issues raised by the public? And are there any additional questions from councillors to staff? Looking for hands. Anybody wishes to speak? Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll send this to Public Works. I know they've been talking about the water and they come out and said they at least give you 2 weeks or 2 weeks notice before they shut it down. But I'd like to ask staff, have they given any other consideration about anything else down at that site rather than closing it? Just so the people in the audience can.
So just a reminder, we're not in a council meeting, we're in a public hearing right now.
I guess it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
The meeting, council, the meeting happens as soon as the public hearing is over and then to deliberations, there may be a chance, but they're in the public hearing.
Yeah.
portion.
Are there any specific questions of staff about the municipal planning strategy, land use bylaw? Not seeing any hands. Is the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee prepared to place a motion on the floor?
I am, Deputy Mayor.
you.
This is the second reading for adoption of the Municipal of Colchester Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw. I will make a motion that council approves by way of second reading the Municipality of Colchester Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw as presented here tonight.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Patton seconds the motion. Any further comments on the motion? Any further discussion on the motion? You ready for the question? Is anybody opposed to that motion? Don't see anybody opposed, so the motion is carried. The adoption of the Municipality of Colchester's Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw has been approved and is not appealable to the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board, formerly the Utilities and Review Board. However, Council's decision on the Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw will require the approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Upon approval from the Minister of Municipal Affairs, a notice is published and the Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw are then in force. And that concludes the public hearing. I want to thank everybody for attending and voicing your concerns. If you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to. But here.
Yeah, we get rid of liability.
Okay, we're ready to begin our council meeting. And we don't have to do roll call again?
Nope.
Nope, we've already done our roll call. So we have an agenda before you, council. I have a couple of additions. 9B would be nominating committee, authority for committee to approve. That's 9B. And number 12, instead of property matter, will be legal matter. And we'll add 13, which is property matter. Those are both in camera. So anything further to add to the agenda? Councillor Cooper?
I'd like to add Lower Truro Spring to the agenda.
Okay. As an information item?
Under action, yeah.
Action 10B, or sorry, 9C. 9C, Lower Truro Water. Anything further? All right, can I have somebody make a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried. You have the minutes from the meeting held February 27th, 2025. Anybody prepared to put a motion on the floor to approve those minutes? Councillor Martel, seconder. Councillor Benoit seconded the motion. Are we ready for the question? Question's been called. Is anybody opposed to this motion? The motion is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? See any hands? All right, we'll move along then to our standing committee reports and recommendations, and I'll ask our alternate chair, Councillor Martel, please, to handle this agenda item.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sanderson. Council committee recommends that the municipality of the Colchester, County of Colchester apply to the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board for changes in its rates for water and water service, fire protection to the municipality, and changes to its rules and regulations for customers served by the Tatamagouche Water Utility, as set out in the water rate study prepared by G.A. Eisner Consulting Limited in association with Blaine S. Rooney Consulting Limited, and that the municipality of the County of Colchester apply to the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board for changes in its rates for water and water service, fire protection to the municipality, and changes to its rules and regulations for customers served by the Debert Water Utility, as set out in the water rate study prepared by G.A. Eisner Consulting Limited in association with Blaine S. Rooney Consulting Limited.
You're making that a motion?
And I so move.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Patton. Any discussion on the motion? Ready for the question? I heard question. Is anybody opposed to this motion? The motion is carried. Councillor Martel.
Council committee recommends that council waives policy and approves the installation of streetlights on Fairway Avenue. I so move.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Cooper. Any further discussion? Question's been called. Is anybody opposed to this motion? The motion is carried. Councillor Martel, please.
Council committee recommends that council adopts the Strategic Tourism Expansion Program report and directs staff and legal counsel to proceed with the formation of a tourism society as described in this report, and that the appointment of a council member to the Tourism Society Executive be referred to the nominating committee. I so move.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Fletcher. Any further discussion on the motion? Question's been called. Is anybody opposed to the motion? The motion is carried. Councillor Martel, please.
Council committee recommends that council approves entering into a new airport operator agreement with the Truro Flying Club for 1 year under the same terms and conditions as the previous agreement. I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Benoit. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, is anybody opposed to the motion? The motion carries unanimously. Councillor Martel, is that it?
That
That's
is
it.
the last.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is the Debert Business Park Advisory Committee. You've received the minutes of their meeting held on March 4th. Anything? Yeah. Is there any, are there any questions about those minutes, or anybody like to highlight anything from those minutes? So we need a motion to receive.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Councillor Martel, seconded by Councillor Benoit. You ready for the question? Question's been called. Is anybody opposed to that motion? And that motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to our action items, and we have our annual account write-offs, and I'll ask our Director of Corporate Services, Scott, please, to address this. Thank you, Tracy.
Hello? Okay, or, thanks, Deputy Mayor. This is an item we did discuss this during committee, and there was a question raised, at that time, but, we did resolve it. It was around the ownership of the property, and, it was a case of, a junior and a senior, and, senior was the, property owner. At the time, the councillor was referring to junior, so we did clarify that. And at the time we talked about this item, we did mention there was only one there, and it was a mobile home, 1974, and we're looking for approval to go ahead with writing it off as part of our year-end process.
Thank you, Scott. Can we have a motion, please? Councillor Patton?
I'd move that council approves the 2024-25 property taxes of $1,605.07 to be written.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Johnson. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, is anybody opposed to the motion? Motion is carried. Number eight is renaming Half Moon Family Recreation Area, and I will ask our Director of Community Services, please, to address this. Paul. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
I'm presenting this on behalf of Craig, who's away. And it really stems from a request that came to council back in November of 2024 from a group named the Friends and Family of the late Bruce Moore, requesting that the Half Moon Family Recreation Area be renamed in his honor. The council at that time had directed staff to have a look at this and then come back to council with a recommendation. And subsequently, staff have had some discussion with Bruce's wife, Nancy, about having something in the park named in his memory, and that's something that we have done on quite a number of occasions. Some of the examples: Elsie's Dog Park in Debert after Elsie DeBay, our deceased animal control officer, Janet Cole Memorial Dog Park in the Nelson Memorial Park. And most recently, the Fundy Discovery Site, where we had a picnic shelter named to honor Bill Masters. I guess the there are some examples of this occurring in other areas of Colchester. And it's actually a bit timely, should council decide that it wishes to make the change. To the extent that the signage at this park needs to be replaced shortly, and whatever changes are made could be incorporated under the new or with the new signage, which the source of funds would come out of the Parks and Trails maintenance budget. So recreation staff have recommended council approve the renaming of the Half Moon Recreation Area, Half Moon Park, and would like to work with the family and friends to ensure the park is properly renamed in his memory, and it may have something to do, may have one possible name would be the Half Moon Family Recreation Area in memory of Bruce Moore, who I should have indicated at the beginning was a very committed, dedicated volunteer in the Valley area, and worked tirelessly to promote, recreational amenities throughout Valley. So I leave that for your consideration and direction.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody prepared to put a motion? Councillor Leggett, please.
Yes, I'd like to, through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Can you pull the mic over closer to your, if you don't mind, just please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion in the renaming of the Half Moon Recreation Area in honor of the late Bruce Moore, as wishes as the group put together.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Kennedy. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Johnson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess I was the one that brought this to the table late last year. I guess Nancy and Bruce had a real close group of friends, 8 or 9 guys that were always involved with ventures and leaders in the area. But Bruce was one of the ones that initiated this. He lived on Falcon there, just off Eagle. And if it wasn't for Bruce's park, wouldn't be there. And I know he worked close with recreation, but some of the members called me here last week. They got together for a dinner and wanted to know when it was coming about. And I said it was on the agenda for tonight. And they talked about signage. So I said, yes, we're looking at roughly $1,500 is in the package here for signage. And they came back to me and said, if we need additional money for signage, they will fund that on their end. So I just want to pass that along to Craig and his staff when it is time to build a sign that, there's probably more dollars here that we can fundraise. And this is special to Bruce, and I think it would go a long way if we spend another couple $1,000s on a sign. It wouldn't be any issues at all. So I just want to pass that along. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion? Councillor Leggett.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I don't know if anybody else here knows the Moore family, but living in Valley for the last 45 years, I've known Bruce and Nancy and all the crowd. Had a lot of good weekends with those people over the years, and very dedicated people to the community and the county. Outstanding people. They certainly deserve this recognition. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to? Ready for the question? Is there anybody opposed to the motion? The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is the Regional Accessibility Plan, and our Director of Solid Waste, please, Phil. No.
Podium.
This is good. This is stupid.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this action item this evening is to seek Council's adoption of the 2025-2028 Regional Accessibility Plan. A bit of background, the Regional Accessibility Advisory Committee is a regional committee for the County of Colchester comprised of citizen representatives and elected officials from the 5 public sector bodies, the Municipality of Colchester, Town of Truro, Town of Stewiacke, Village of Bible Hill, and the Village of Tatamagouche, all within the boundaries of the County of Colchester. Every 3 years, the accessibility plan is regulated for review and an update, and the current plan expires in March 31st of 2025. A bit of analysis on this side is a consulting firm, the Left Turn, Right Turn was hired through a joint procurement process with the public sector bodies and to complete the review and provide an updated plan for submission to the province of Nova Scotia. And Left Turn, Right Turn have completed the plan, and over the last 6 months, this period involved sort of a variety of things, including policy and document reviews, public consultation via some community pop-ups, engagement with staff within all the different public sector bodies, draft presentations to the Regional Accessibility Advisory Committee, as well as the respective councils and commissions as a collective. And that happened on March the 10th. So the option this evening is to have council adopt the 2025-2028 accessibility plan. Some resource implications in that plan. There's a lot of recommendations. So it's a potential implementation of those recommended actions. Obviously would happen within the framework of approved annual budgets. The input from other sources included a lot of community citizens, the staff from all the public sector bodies, as well as the respective councils and commissions. And the strategic priorities implications indicate that the current plan that we have expires March 31st of this year, and every 3 years, the accessibility plan is regulated for a review and an update. And staff are recommending to council that they adopt the 2025-2028 accessibility plan. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And in your package, there was a copy of the 2025-28 accessibility plan.
Thank you, Phil. Is anybody prepared to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Patton?
I'm prepared to put a motion on the floor that this council adopts the 25-28 accessibility as presented.
And do we have a seconder? Councillor Martel and Councillor Patton, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Phil. Phil, the job you and the team have done on this plan is remarkable, and I really appreciate what you've done here. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
Any further comments, questions? No? Are you ready for the question? Question's been called. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? The motion carries. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item 9B is nominating committee, authority for committee to approve, and I'll ask our CAO please to address this.
Thank you very much. So through the chair to council, for consideration, this is the granting of authority to a pro-council committee to approve recommendations from nominating regarding the appointments of various committee vacancies. So as folks are aware, we've been advertising for some of the positions right now that haven't been filled on committees. We received a few expressions of interest for some of those vacancies. And so basically, between now and committee, the intention would be to call a nominating committee meeting and look to have individuals representative on some of those vacancies. So in order to expedite process, and particularly with the number of meetings that are going to be coming later in April, we are looking tonight that if council would approve, or committee would approve, that council would approve, that committee approve the recommendations or hear the nominations from nominating committee at April committee meeting.
Thank you, Dan. Do we have a motion to do just what Dan said? Councillor Patton.
So moved, yes.
And do we have a seconder? Councillor Johnson. You all understand the motion? All right, you ready for the question?
Excuse me.
Question's been called.
Could
Is
I ask a
anybody? Oh,
question?
sorry, Mayor Blair.
Thank you. We just approved in our council report, we talked about our new tourism committee that's going to be set up, the new, and having a representative on that. Is that going to be part of this, or is that too premature?
Dan, please.
Thank you. And so through the chair, good catch, Mayor Blair. Yes, that is in fact one of those items that we would be looking to have a member of council to be put on that new committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Blair. So are we ready now for the vote? Question? Okay, question's been called. Anybody opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Thank you. 9C, Lower Truro Water, and I believe Councillor Cooper, you added this.
Yes, couple things. I think from the discussion tonight, I'd like if we could make a motion to send this to staff for further review and determine what, if anything, can be done other than what's been presented so far.
So a motion to refer to staff.
Yes.
Okay, and we have a seconder, Councillor Kennedy, and sorry, CAO, please.
So just for greater clarity and understand that a motion's been passed by council, so this is not a reconsideration of the decision. What we're asking staff, is there any alternatives?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, exactly.
That's okay with you?
Yeah,
Councillor Cooper?
that's what I'm
Councillor
asking.
Kennedy? All right. Any further discussion on the motion?
Before we get to that, if
sorry.
I could go through you, Chair, to Michelle.
Sure.
I'll wait till she gets. Just a quick. Okay, just a quick question. So when we, at the present time with the water situation, what we were proposing to do was to just dismantle what we've put there. The water would still be there if, the water's not gonna disappear. We'd just be taking out what we put there. Is that the plan at the present time?
To Councillor Cooper through the chair. The plan would be to dismantle the site, so there would be no way to access the water at that location.
The water wouldn't still be coming down where it was before.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so the water would be gone then.
Correct.
Okay.
Anything
Right.
further, Councillor Cooper?
Yes, because that's because we did the piping part. Is that why I'd like that, or is because it always come down to before we got involved? What happened that water wouldn't be there after we leave?
CAO would like to say a word,
Okay.
Michelle.
All right, no, I'm just trying to get clarification.
Yeah, so through the chair, first of all, the arrangement is there is because 2 leases were in place and those leases have expired.
Right.
So anything that would be coming off of one property or collecting another property, those relationships no longer exist. So the individuals on those sites, what would happen with regards to, there's a requirement after the lease to decommission. But basically those owners, if we didn't do that, would be taking on some kind of liability of their own. So I would say, as per your request here, that what we would really be talking about at the end of the day is there an alternative to getting water at this site somewhere else in order to make water available?
Could you repeat that?
So this site, that decision's been made by council on this site.
Right.
So with regards to making water available, you're looking for staff to come up with some alternatives, really at the end of the day. So this site right now, the leases are done, they're expired. And so our requirement would be to decommission what's there. So really, the alternatives are going to be, is there going to be water likely available at another site?
Okay, it's not quite what I was trying to get at, but I'll let Councillor Benoit talk first.
Councillor Benoit.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just remind me the date when this one was being decommissioned? I know we said 2 weeks, but is that like in a couple of days? Do we still have like a week, or where are we at?
To Michelle, please.
Through the chair, so no date has been set for commissioning.
Okay.
We've simply advised the public that when we do set the date, we will
Oh,
give at least 2 weeks
give 2
notice. So
weeks
this 2
notice,
weeks
right.
has not started to elapse at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Leggett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for clarity and for everybody here. I made the motion to shut the facility down based on information that was given to us at the council meeting. In light of what's coming, what I understand here tonight, I believe the water source should be left operating until an alternate or a better arrangement is found. I don't understand. The leases have expired, but we haven't set a date to terminate the operation. It makes no sense to me. Like, tell me where I'm wrong.
CAO, please.
Thank you. So I guess first of all, for the councillors who, they're new to council, over a year ago, a discussion took place when the 20-year lease expired, and there was consideration given for a 1-year extension to move forward. At this point in time, the decision was made by council to close or not to renew that lease. The water source, in order to go in and decommission, and as you know, the day in which the lease expired, there's not going to be vehicles on the scene decommissioning. But it is also one of those things where, for all intents and purposes, if the landowner said to us, on the date of the lease expired, we want that to happen, they could ask of that and we would have to comply, but that's not what they're asking us to do. So what would happen at this point in time is notice would be given once arrangements were made for that decommissioning process to occur. We're going to continue with the existing process, but at this moment in time, the landowners have not said to us, this has got to be completely decommissioned on the date that the lease ends. So at this moment in time, we're not decommissioning on the 31st.
Thank you, Dan, and to Michelle, please.
And through the chair, what I will add is because the decommissioning will require some construction in the right of way, and because the roads are under spring weight restriction right now, that's why we haven't proceeded. So until construction conditions improve, we won't determine a closure date. So that was the reason why no specific date was set. Once the roads reopen, then we can come up with a plan.
Thank you. And Councillor Leggett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm now more confused than we are. I understand spring weight restrictions come off on May 27th, I think it is, or May 20th. Anyways, I think this has been handled horribly badly. We could come up with a solution in this time frame if we'd been had we been presented with the information at hand. I feel bad about this. It's not my style. I'm told information and I act on it based on it's the best and most forthright. I'm very disappointed in this. I'm more than willing to help anybody that wants to work on anything in this county. And we had the opportunity here to make this better for everybody, and I think we should. So let's all work together and make this better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry. You're right in front of me. Mayor Blair, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Based on the motion, I wonder if we could change the motion. I'm asking the mover and seconder if we could change the motion from alternatives to alternatives or new information.
Is that okay with the mover and seconder? Yep.
Okay, because I believe that there may be some new information, but the bottom line is we have what we have right now, and it comes back to council. We would discuss it further, and
Right.
and we know that there's the will of the community. Thank you.
All right. So we're okay with that change to the motion. Yep. Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess a question through you to Michelle. I don't know the answer to this, so maybe you do. Are we obligated, like the leases have expired, and are we obligated to actually shut this down and decommission it, or can we just walk away and not assume any responsibility from here on out?
The lease, I'm going to take that question. Whenever I hear obligated, I figure in my turn. So under the lease, yes, it's supposed to be decommissioned. The lease, as the CEO indicated, ends as of March 31st. If the landowner tolerates the infrastructure being there at will, the landowner can tolerate it being at will. He can also strictly enforce and saying lease is up, get out. So right now, your lease is over March 31st, and under the terms, you're supposed to decommission. So what happens informally, and with the, not only, there's two owners involved. So what happens informally and at their will is really up to them.
Thank you,
If I
Dennis.
may
Yes,
follow, if I may
Councillor
follow up,
Johnson.
so that kind of answered my question, but didn't. I guess what I do know is that that is an artesian well. We just can't shut the flow of that off because what it will do is pressurize that house that's across the street. I remember it's Dirk Gaines's house. So water does have to come from that well casing and be routed somewhere, whether it goes back to the ditch or whatever. So I guess my question is, if we decommission it, what do we do? Do we dig a hole and put blasted stone in and drive it into that, or we just, like, I guess my thought was, is do we walk away and leave it and let everybody use it at their own risk, or is that an option?
Michelle, do you want to take that one?
Through the chair, I guess the matter of risk maybe is a question for Dennis.
Okay.
In terms of the decommissioning, you know, I'd say those are technical things that staff will work out in the coming weeks. And as part of our follow-up with council on the motion tonight, then we can bring back more information on that.
Okay, Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is a technical discussion with the staff, but if the lease says decommission, it's really decommissioning to the satisfaction of the owner. And knowing what safety or obligations we have independent of the owner. So I can't technically answer Councillor Johnson, or Madam Chair, through you to Councillor Johnson. I can't technically answer. But if the owner is satisfied and we're satisfied, we've met whatever safety protocol we feel we need to do, and the owner says leave it, that's the owner to decide.
You okay?
Okay, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councillor Martel?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there is enough time that people will have as we consider alternatives, and if the motion passes and is referred back to staff, that we will have that time to provide to people to find an alternative before it would be decommissioned, if that's the path that we take. I know when we discussed this at the council table, I did say I would like to know alternatives to point people to. I'm glad we're revisiting then an alternative if it can't be the spring. But I do want to make sure that there's a sufficient time where we're not turning it off and then still looking at alternatives.
Okay. Any further discussion? So we have a motion to look at direct to staff to look at alternatives and receive any new information that might come. We're okay with that motion? Question's been called. Is anybody opposed to this motion? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Next item is our correspondence. We have received I guess it's an email from the Gaelic Nova Scotia group, and the Gaelic Nova Scotia month is coming up in May. Wondering if we would like to host a flag raising or proclamation ceremony. Anybody prepared to make a motion on this? Councillor Cooper?
Make the motion. Proclaim.
To proclaim?
Yes.
We have a seconder. Councillor Martel? Any further discussion? Is anybody opposed to the motion? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. And we have our correspondence from our development officer, building inspector. We also have correspondence from the Deputy Chief Jason Blois, Hilden Fire Brigade, and that letter is included. We have also from Jeff Mercer, the Executive Director and Chief Librarian, Colchester East Hants Public Library. some correspondence, and that has been circulated and received. So I guess I'm looking for a motion to receive all of this correspondence. Motion by Councillor Leggett, seconded by Councillor Patton. Any further discussion? Question's been called. Anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. And you also have your reports from all of the councillors. Thank you very much for your reports. Did I miss one? I mentioned them. Yeah. Yeah. No. And thank you for Councillor Benoit, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to mention, I just checked my email because I thought my report went through, and I was gonna mention that I put on there the dangerous and unsightly, but I did end up missing it yesterday, but I see my council report I don't think actually went through, so I apologize and I will send it through tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Benoit. Anything further before we go in camera? Okay, I would ask then for a motion to go in camera. Moved by Councillor Patton, seconded by Councillor Fletcher. Anybody opposed to the motion? The motion's carried, and we'll take a 10-minute break.
They did Friday night or Thursday night, but not Friday. I didn't hear what.
Just